Welcome to From the Trenches, success shortcuts revealed by real-world innovators crushing it right now. I'm your host, Scott Hartley, and we're back with another episode packed with actionable strategies from today's most successful entrepreneurs. If you're tired of generic business advice and ready for real cutting-edge tactics that are working right now, you're in the right place. Now, for just a moment, think back to your last interaction with any service-based business. What stood out to you? Anything? If you're like most of us, you'd probably have to go deep into the recesses of your brain to recall a time when you were just wowed by how a business made you feel, or a unique way that they treated or served you, or just did something out of the ordinary in a good way. Well, my guest today, he sees the vast untapped potential that businesses have to make small adjustments to their service delivery that can turn fickle patients, clients, and customers into lifelong buyers and vocal advocates that can outperform any marketing or advertising you can throw money at. So I'd like to introduce you to Rich Lamendola. He founded Brand Bliss to help the service-based businesses use marketing and advertising as a tool, but not the be-all, end-all. Since 2013, he's been helping clients grow, laugh, take risks, and believe that they can really grow the type of business that they want. Rich, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Rich and I have really been working for quite some time. We kind of collaborated on this project. Started off with discussions about how many businesses really don't have great service. And there's a lot of opportunities here because, standing out in today's crowded market, one of the easiest and best ways to be able to do that is by providing spectacular service. But it really doesn't take that much to differentiate yourself from the competition, right? So,
That's right.
before we dive into that, though, Rich, just kind of give us a little bit of your background. How did you get into the whole marketing thing and helping businesses and founding Brand Bliss?
Yeah, thanks. So I feel like even as far back as I could remember, right, it was always something entrepreneurial, whether it was doing something and selling it, or creating art and selling it, or doing like a talent show and charging my family to come see it. Now it's remains to be seen whether they just wanted to give me a few bucks to go away, or they were actually genuinely interested in what I was trying to hustle. So it's always been something, right? It's always been some sort of entrepreneurial flair, but I've always had a 9 to 5 job, and always thinking about what's next. But I could never really leave that 9 to 5, and I was consulting for a financial firm and doing a lot of traveling. I was a caretaker for my dad, and I had an opportunity to take a full-time job in New York City at Rockefeller Center, and I jumped at that, and I thought like I arrived. It was like I was taking the train into the city. It was like everything like that I thought like a job was. And lo and behold, in 2012, during Superstorm Sandy, unfortunately, I lost my dad.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, this is like awful. And then 4 weeks later, I got a phone call that said, you need to go into the conference room. Jeff is in there with some paperwork. We need to let you go. And that moment, like, I just felt like this crazy warm feeling that just like went from my head to my toes. And I was like I don't even know. So I just went in, and yeah, I lost my job and my dad in 4 weeks' time. And
Oh,
like
wow.
I was just left with really nothing. Like I had
Mhm.
nothing to go off of. And I got a phone call on my walk back to my newly leased apartment that now I probably couldn't even afford. And it was a guy from the office who I never really even spoke to. And he said, "Hey, I wouldn't be in a rush to get back into hedge fund administration and marketing." He said, "Why don't you take some white space and figure out, maybe what it is that would be really good for you." He said, "The people in this industry, they're just very cutthroat, and that would just be my advice." And I was like, okay. So that was like a weird call, but now in hindsight, I can say that that call was probably what I needed to hear at the time.
Sure.
And yeah, I pulled out a piece of paper, and I just started writing. Like I just started like, I guess, getting my thoughts onto paper so that they wouldn't stay in my head. And what I figured out was that I loved a little bit of copy, and I loved a little bit of like campaign like messaging, and loved a little bit of email and all of these little things, but I didn't want to do one thing all day.
Hmm.
And so I just started talking to people. I just started saying, like, hey, like I'm a marketing consultant. I can help you grow your business. Like, give me a shot. And one conversation led to a client, led to another client, led to another client. And, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of Maylocks, a lot of tears and uncertainty and joy and fulfillment and, building something. And now we're here 13 years later, working with service-based businesses that want to get from where they are to where they want to be. And we sort of help them build that bridge. But
Hmm.
we definitely look at that service component to try to help them differentiate themselves in a market that's sort of plagued with, subpar service.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite the journey, but your story is very similar to what I hear from entrepreneurs, in almost every industry. There's usually some life-changing event that's like, hey, maybe the corporate world, the employee world isn't for me. Let me go find the passion, the thing that I really want to do, and basically be my own boss and be able to help others in the way that I want to serve. So it's really interesting to kind of hear your journey, through that there. When it comes
Yeah.
to, the whole service delivery thing, I know, probably about a year ago now, we started talking about, this. What are some of the things that you've seen over the recent years that have kind of helped you really start to deep dive into helping businesses improve the service delivery and make kind of a radical shift that sets them apart from others?
Yeah, I think the thing that really got me was two things, right? So it was my own experience with businesses and service, and making a bigger purchase or hiring someone to do something and being disappointed consistently, and not having like super high expectations, just like do what you say you're going to do, and we couldn't even get there. And
Right?
so I've learned how to become numb, protect myself with, either contracts or, what have you, but just always saying, like, keeping the expectations very low.
Hmm.
The other side of that has been bringing leads or, prospects to a customer's front door or a client's front door, right? So whether it's a contact form, the phone rings. And we did some work for a client in an industry, and I think we did a pretty good job. But when we got a review in, because we monitor all the reviews for clients,
Uh-huh.
it said something to the effect of, I visited their website and I read it thoroughly, or, and I engaged with all their stuff. And when I went into the business, it was anything but. And I
Hmm.
said, gosh, like we took the client through the exercise that we take clients through, and
Hmm.
they told us who they were, and we sort of shaped that a little bit, but not too much. And so we did our part, but what was actually happening on the inside, what wasn't what was, being shown on the outside. So it's almost like a game of telephone, right? Like what we're saying isn't actually what's coming out on the other end. And I said, wow, like there's an opportunity here to help clients beyond the contact form and the phone, to actually get, a seat at the table with the business owner to say, hey, like, what's going on? Like, are we recording calls? Are we listening to, how patients or guests or users or customers are being spoken to? Like, you're the one that's spending all the money on this advertising. What's happening? And sort of teaching them or coaching them on the idea of customer lifetime value, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
so much easier to get a customer and keep them happy, as opposed to spend the money, bring the customer in, not really obsess about their treatment or their experience. They leave to a competitor, and now you're back doing the same thing, and it's like the hardest game.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's
I think
interesting
that's
that and getting that feedback, because a lot of times I know, even in my experiences, I go to a restaurant, I go to a doctor's office, or I'm working with a marketing agency, whatever that it is. A lot of times we have these great expectations. They paint this wonderful picture of how life is going to be. The meal, you can see even on the advertisements, even for the fast food restaurants, they show you the best looking burger, the best looking chicken sandwich. And then when you actually go to the restaurant, it looks nothing like, what's on their commercial. But those experiences a lot of times they're less than stellar, but most of us don't take the time to give the feedback like you had for your client, where they took time to leave the review and say, hey, things didn't match up here. So if you have one person that says, hey, this didn't match the expectations that I had, you can imagine that there are a lot of other people that had those same type of thoughts, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And one of the things we say internal, like our internal thing is, do they even know? And they being the owner, do
Mm-hmm.
they even know that this is happening? And a lot
Yeah.
of times they have no idea. They
Yeah.
have no idea. They hire, they put people in roles, they go unchecked, and it's a big waste of time, it's a waste of effort, it's a waste of energy, and probably the biggest waste is money,
Yeah.
because they're wasting money on advertising to bring new customers to the fold, and it's not working.
Yeah. Hey, and that's something that's come up in a lot of conversations that I've had here with different people on the podcast. Most of your gurus say, hey, you've got to go out and get new leads, get more leads, get more leads. And that's the most costliest type of investment that you can have. And, new leads are important to the lifeblood of a business. But if they're exiting out that back door as fast as they're coming in, you're wasting a lot of money. So, what are some of the negative things that happen when somebody has a bad experience, and whether they express that or not, what type of damage or what type of effect does that have on businesses?
Well, yeah, so they've immediately lost the customer acquisition cost, right? And
Hmm.
if it's a couple dollars to, sometimes there's a couple $100 to bring somebody to the fold, plus what they've maybe given them as an incentive to come in,
Hmm.
they have a negative association. So even if it's a local business and they're just talking with a friend and that name comes up, there's automatically going to be a negative association. The likelihood of them voicing or vocalizing their experience with that particular business is pretty high. So
Hmm.
then you have almost a ripple effect going out. I mean, even for the people who are inside the business, right? Like low morale, or even employees experiencing or witnessing the way people are being treated sometimes can also feel like, oh, it's okay for me to do that as well.
Hmm.
So it's a cascading effect, and none of it is good,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And it's only through you know uh, awareness, like that it's even happening, or the awareness that you even need to be looking out for these things. A lot of business owners have, like I said, they really don't know,
Hmm.
but until you can't really do something about it. And then once you have to, then you're in another pickle, right? You have to get rid of the person, you have to retrain, you have to put an ad out. It's a whole nother series. So sometimes people just say, I hope it gets better, or I'll have a talk with so and so. But again, and then they're busy trying to run the business. So I mean, like, everybody's starved for time, attention, energy, effort. Like there's just no one has an abundance of it, at least nobody that I know.
Right.
So it just becomes like this, like, I hope it'll get better, or I'll get better at dealing with it. And neither of them are great solutions.
Yeah. And the sad fact is that while they're hoping that things are getting better, they're losing that credibility with their customers. They're losing that word of mouth, the positive word of mouth that they could be getting, and obviously the money, that's lost in that as well. And
Sure.
so there's a lot of those things that, and even if you've got businesses or customers who are willing to put up with the BS, right? They're willing to tolerate something that, okay, it's not as great as it could be, but I don't want to have to go through the pain of switching or finding something else, whatever that is.
Mhm.
But at the moment that something else is enticing, a competitor gives a really special offer, or they paint a better picture of life, is the grass is greener over here. If they're not completely satisfied with you, they're likely to jump, right? And so now you
Oh,
have that
sure.
revolving door. And so, I really want to drive home the point that, that there is a cost, even, of inaction. If you're not looking at your business, there's a huge leak in your business that is costing you in so many ways that you're not thinking about.
Yeah. And I learned the value of service, early on. Um, I wrote about it in my LinkedIn, I think maybe about a year ago, about how I went from working as a janitor in a middle school to a job that you know I hated, right? I was working, I was a janitor, I was sweeping, and I quit. I quit that job with the pension, with the benefits, and I started doing like this at home day trading thing. It wasn't really working out so well, but I ended up becoming an employee at Merrill Lynch. So literally went from being a janitor working at Merrill Lynch, and I learned about service. I learned about service delivery, service modeling, not only from the advisors who were handling, at that time, a couple $1 million just per household,
Mm-hmm.
but I also learned about service from an operational end because I was like the service support controller for this branch in Upper Westchester that did fairly well. So it's always been ingrained in me for like the service side of things and the way I don't know, it might have some weird brain that it just keeps going until it figures out multiple solutions to one problem and presents them and then able to test each one either like a quick way with the client or a quick way on my own,
Mm-hmm.
but to figure out what is the best bet to solve this problem in whether it's service, sales, lead generation, messaging, so on and so forth. But I think taking that idea and always bringing things back to that, like how people are treated.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a theory that action do speak louder than advertising,
Yeah.
right? They do. They speak louder, and that's sort of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how people are treated is how they associate that,
Yeah.
right? And let alone forget about being numb to things and just I feel like if companies or business owners just even ratcheted it up a little bit from
Yeah.
from the pack, they could really do much better than they are today. But
Yeah,
it
and
comes
just a
back to that
little,
to that
1%
service.
shift can make a huge, difference in, what you're, and really it goes back to how are you making your customers feel? Do they feel appreciated? Do they feel valued? And it doesn't take a lot. So, for an example, my parents this past week they hired a new company several months ago to do pest control at their house, and so they come inside and they spray and so on and so forth. And this month was a different new guy that they had sent out, but immediately this guy he walked in and he took off his shoes right inside the door, took off his shoes, and then went throughout the house and did the pest control treatment. That really was what my mom was looking for. Rather than just like, oh, I come inside and I just start walking around. He actually
Yeah.
took time to take his shoes off and be thoughtful. Did that cost the company anything? Not a penny. And that made a huge impression. My mom called the company up and said, next time I want you to send the same guy. He is giving us the service that we're looking for. So it doesn't take a lot. So if we go now into looking at what are some things that business owner, especially the busy business owner, what are some things that they should be looking at to see where are there these gaps in our business that are causing friction between us and our clients, our new leads, our customers, and our patients?
Yeah. So one of the exercises we go through with clients is called like their brand standards, right? Like what is it that they want their customers to have happen and have happen consistently. And you'll see this sometimes if you go to retail and somebody greets you within the first, 30 seconds of walking in the door, like that's a standard,
Mm-hmm.
whether that came from the company or the store manager, like somebody declared that to happen, especially if it's happening consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Looking at the phases of the you know, post sale, right? Like forget about just the sale, like what happens in the first 90 days
Mm-hmm.
of a conversion, right? If it's just a transactional thing, like, hey, they came to the store, they bought a toothbrush, they leave, like there's really nothing happening there. I mean, you could make it a little sexy, but
Mm-hmm.
more service businesses where there's touch points, where there's meetings, where there's performance, where there's people are relying like certified financial planners. They have planning meetings, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
there's things that need to be prepared for those meetings. Well, how those meetings are structured, what happens up until the point of that meeting, or builders, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who are building homes or doing construction. Construction is probably one of the biggest nightmares. Nobody wants to do construction because they're always disappointed
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, I should say, anyway, right?
Right.
Because the people they said they were going to show up, they didn't show up. They take seven jobs, then now I'm in the juggling, you know. So I think having some brand standards and making those clear, and then having a way to check back, like, are these things happening? So
Mm-hmm.
whether you have to secret shop your own store, your own phone, have somebody secret shop on uh, a speakerphone, like
Mm-hmm.
call your own company, but have somebody else do the talking while you listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what the phone etiquette is. Are they just saying, yeah, hold? But you want them to say, may I put you on hold a second, or whatever that language is. Like, is that all happening?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's as business owners, it's our business, right? Like, we're not like, that's some of the opportunities we get as business owners to say, no, 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 these are my brand standards. You're my employee. This is what I'm expecting as my company. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to deal with whether this thing succeeds or fails.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to take some ownership. You could email in, right? You could say, hey, how are people engaging via email? What's happening? Monitor, reviews. Who's following up with the reviews? And also, sometimes we have to look at the front line. We have to look at comp. We have to look at what we're providing to the people who are essentially carrying our business. These frontline workers, I got to tell you, a lot of times I'm having conversations with prospects and talking to them about just, compensation, right? For the people who are answering the phones for the leads. And you'd be surprised how their comp looks. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to get super judgmental, but I would say like what that comp looks like
Yeah.
in terms of the importance of that person and the quality and the training and the effort and the energy that you're putting into advertising, they're landing at this person.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just, I don't want to say just as important as the person doing the work, but that's a pretty important role,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so, we're finding a lot of that. And we're talking to business owners about saying, hey, like, let's incentivize, let's, do more recorded calls. Let's reward, frontline employees at team meetings that are doing an exceptional job,
Mm-hmm.
spot bonuses. It doesn't always have to be cash. Sometimes it's lunch.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's let them pick the lunch that the office is going to eat one Friday a month. Like, it doesn't always have to be like this enormous gush of cash, but people want to be recognized. And
Yeah.
when a good person in that seat leaves over a few dollars, you watch the business really implode. Like it causes problems
Yeah.
from training, from even the perception of what happened to so and so.
Mm-hmm.
He or she is not here anymore. They've been here for 20 years. What
Yeah.
happened? And the behind the scenes is they left because they weren't getting what they needed.
Yeah. It's so important to really think about, who's the face of the company, the people that are interacting every single day with the patients, the clients, and the customers. And how are they really coming across with people, and that compensation, and how do they feel? How do those employees feel? Are they excited to be there? Do they look forward to serving your customers? if they have some ownership, if they, believe in what you're doing and they feel valued, that's going to translate into, taking care of your customers. And I forget which company that it is, but they have this saying, is like, number one, we take care of our employees. If we do a great job of taking care of our employees, we don't have to worry about our customers being taken care of because they're going to be taken care of because our employees feel valued.
Even just a little autonomy. I had a client early on, and they had it's like a $200 rule. Like if you can make a customer happy for under $200, you don't need manager approval.
Mm.
Just do it. It's recorded. Obviously, if there's a pattern of every month, there's like $1,000. You can
Right.
you can check in on this stuff. But the idea is that when you have to be put on hold, and then I have to go ask someone, and then they're busy, and then it creates a big, it's really about people are exchanging hard-earned money for a service, right?
Mhm.
And they have expectations, but probably even before they engage the company. And when those expectations are exceeded, at a first time,
Mhm.
that's a big win for a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And when they can continue to be either even on par, consistent, because now they have an expectation of
Mhm.
what's going to happen. And I'm expecting to have this. I'm expecting to have, warm bread brought to the table with whipped butter. The
Mhm.
next time the bread comes cold and I get a block of butter, I'm going to say, well, what happened, right? Like,
Right.
I have expectations
Yeah.
that the first time I experience, and I feel like restaurants, it's a struggle with a restaurant to do things completely consistent every time because the chefs change,
Mhm.
right? So the way somebody prepares a meal in the kitchen might be largely different from how somebody else does it, even though they're doing the same recipe.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I feel like consistency is a big thing, expectations, and people just, people want to feel valued. I mean, we're, I don't know, I just feel like people are tired. Like, I don't know if I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like people are tired, people are numb, people are just like they're doing the best they can, and there's only so much time in the day, and it's like it's just where we're at, but there's opportunity. There's
Yeah.
opportunity for to do the hard,
Yeah.
to do the not sexy work,
Yeah.
right? Because I've found, you know, people like to do the sexier stuff, but the real stuff, the real goods that moves your business is the stuff nobody's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what you talked about recording phone calls, and then if you're recording those, it's obviously important to go listen to those recordings to know, what's being said to the people that
Yeah,
are on the phone, and is there
sure.
consistency between different employees and everything. What's your take on should businesses have an auto attendant? So when you call in, it's this recording and press one for this and 17 for that. Or should you have your phones answered live by somebody? What's kind of your opinion on that?
So phone trees are not a terrible thing if they're efficient, right?
Hmm.
You will see sales prioritized first in a phone tree, and you'll typically get somebody hyper polished, ready
Hmm.
to rock, ready to take you through, ready to separate you from your money. And then when you need the service side, it sort of dips down.
Hmm.
But I feel like if you have a phone tree and it's prioritized in a way where sales are important, but your service end is just as important, and you're putting the right people to answer that call. I don't feel like it's terrible. I know that there are technologies out there where if your phone gets disconnected and you call back and it doesn't look like you spoke to somebody, it will push you to the top of the chain.
Oh, okay.
And so that's a big frustration, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
times have we all been on calls and it gets disconnected, and then you call back and it says, "All right, we can answer your call in 35 minutes." And
Right.
I'm like, "But I was just so close." Um, so I don't mind either way. I just feel like whichever way it is, it needs to be well thought out.
Yeah.
So if it's a live person answering, they need to know how to route the call. They need to have the right personality. They need to be smiling when they answer the phone. They have to be switched on for their shift.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know how to deal with maybe somebody that's not happy. What has the business or the business owner, or in some cases now me along with the business owner and the other management team, what has been decided happens with an employee that has a problem? How is it prioritized? What information is given to the person on the front line, and then what happens with that information? How quickly can it get into the right hand of the decision maker if that person is just routing calls?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with a phone tree. I'm okay with a live rep. I just feel like they need to be well thought out and they need to be looked at and evaluated
Yeah. Yeah. That
and
makes
and
sense.
and iterated, right? Like, improved over time.
Yeah, like yesterday, I called an organization that had a phone tree, and I pressed the extension that I needed to get to. It rang twice, and then it disconnected me, so I had to call back. So it's worth
Mhm.
testing your phone system to make sure that everything is up and running. But then I also
Yeah.
had an interesting experience. I was looking for a new car dealership to service my truck, and so I
Okay.
called one that was a little bit closer to me, and so I called and got the service department, and I was asking for pricing. And so the service department was able to give me pricing for the service, but it was an oil change that I needed. I needed the works package. It's a Ford vehicle, so I needed the works package. So that's
Right.
including the service, the tire rotation, the oil change. And for the other dealership, I already had a coupon that's a package deal. The works package is $60. So I didn't have a coupon for this dealership, so I wanted to know how much that they cost. So I called in, got the service department, and they gave me the price for the service. And then they said, well, we've got to transfer you over to parts, and they can tell you how much the oil and the filter and everything is going to be. And that just really, it didn't leave a good taste in my mind, because it's like I should be able to go to one place and be able to get the entire pricing. If I can go to another dealership and it's a package deal, why isn't it the same here? It's a Ford dealership. So it's kind of like, how look at things from a customer perspective, not just as the business perspective. Because a lot of times I think that as business owners, we try to make things easy for us when we
Yeah.
should be making it harder for us, but it's going to be a super smooth experience for the end user, right?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the values that we bring, or at least from, again, the way my brain works. Like, I can be put into any situation, really, like even when so it bothers the heck out of my wife, like when we show up somewhere and I'm like, oh, like this doesn't feel like, and I'm sort of going and it just goes.
Yeah.
But you can't discount a fresh set of eyes and experience. So somebody that knows what to look for,
Mm-hmm.
um, can articulate it, because as business owners, they don't really, it's not, I don't want to say it's not their fault, but they can't see it because they're in the business every day.
Yeah.
They're in the weeds of the business, clawing through, trying to get to the next thing. They can't see what's going on. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when we come in, or I come in, or I visit a business, or I sit with a business owner and I look at what's going on, I'm like, oh, it's right there. Like, it's and it looks like it's been there for a while. Like, why don't we fix this? Like, this is a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, that, yeah. And I'm like, I understand. I'm not beating you up. It's you didn't see it because you've stared at it for so long and it looked okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that fresh set of eyes,
Yeah.
and sometimes in a weird way, what will work for one business will work for another business on a completely different spectrum, a completely different industry, complete. You'd be surprised, and I think that's one of the benefits of not sort of niching out, right? Like, when you
Mm-hmm.
just do one industry all day long, like, that industry. One of the things that I bring to the table is I work with 20, 30 different kinds of businesses. So sometimes you can take what works really well for a dentist and plug it into a plumber. And
Hmm.
it's like, wow, like that's a really good fit, even though
Yeah.
I wouldn't have come to that conclusion. So, but yeah, I think, listen, running a business is not easy. Dealing with the public, dealing with people and money, really difficult. Um, I feel like there's just an opportunity. There's just an opportunity for a business owner that wants a sustainable business to
Hmm.
say, if I'm selling this at this price, my competitor's selling this at this price, we might have different marketing or advertising, but at the end of the day, we're doing the same things.
Yeah.
If we can up it a little bit and differentiate, the differentiation matters
Yeah. And I know a
long
bunch of
term.
people, including myself, I will pay more for excellent service.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so hands down, it could be the exact same product, it could be the exact same service, but how it's delivered, I will pay more every single time if you're delivering above and beyond just the norm of what it is. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are the same way. So as we kind of wrap this up, couple final things. One is, you shared a lot of ideas here today. What's one thing to any of our listeners that are listening, what would be one thing that they could start to audit or look at themselves to see if they could improve something in their service delivery? What would you recommend?
I would recommend getting like a legal size blank piece of paper, wide, sit it down and really with a pencil, just chart chart out the customer experience. Like chart out what happens. So patient comes in, handed a clipboard, 15 pieces of paper, right? Like all of this information. We need all this information. All right, like, is all that really necessary? Can any of it be digitized? Like, ask yourself, can this be improved? If so, how? If not, who could I ask? Because you might say, no, I don't think it can be improved, or, like, because they don't really know.
Right.
But, question, challenge, efficiency. Is this necessary? If so, can it be improved?
Hmm.
If not, then it has to stay. And then the next thing, right? Like they need to sit. They need to sit in the waiting room. Obviously, I'm using a dental practice or a doctor's office, but you can
Hmm.
really apply this to anything. All right. So now environment, right? Like where are they sitting? Right? Is it the same, 1980s TV with the line going through it that nobody's really paid attention to? Like you get a really cheap TV at Costco, go put it up on the thing and put a remote down or figure out a way to have something that they can digest or pre-frame something you might pitch to them on the inside, like
Hmm.
environment. Could they be offered something? A beverage, a water, whatever. Then they're brought in. Where are they brought to? They're brought into an operatory. What happens? Like, take that time and really be intentional about the environments or the stages or the phases of your customer journey
Hmm.
and look at them. And if you have all that, that's really a great place for a fresh set of eyes,
Hmm.
because the fresh set of eyes would say, oh, you know what? You're going to talk to them about this inside. You want to sell them on this. You should be showing them something like about that on the TV, about how it changes people's lives without
Hmm.
the hard sell. Just talk about how Sally or Phil changed their life.
Hmm.
So I would say look at the journey as you see it. And then you could even test that to say, like, is that really what happens?
Hmm.
And then you can go from there. But I think there's value in understanding, there's value in experience, there's value in learning about how people are treated and what they feel like when when they engage and when they interact with your company and your brand.
Yeah, I think that's a great exercise. That 30 minutes, that 60 minutes that you take to map that out is probably the best investment that you can make this year to start making, that incremental shift in your business. And so as part of that, you mentioned, get a second set of eyes. So obviously, this is something that you do. You can be that second set of eyes. So I know that you've got, a gift for our listeners if they want to take advantage of it. Tell us a little bit about what that is that you offer.
So I started a framework. It's a MAPS blueprint, and I call it the free consult killer. What I've learned is that most people want a free consult so that they can get ideas on what to do,
Hmm.
and most businesses love to get free consults so they can figure out how much money the people have. And at the end of the day, nobody ever really gets what they want. Like people never really get the budget, and
Hmm.
people never really get good ideas for free.
Yeah.
So they both walk away somewhat disappointed. Or if they walk away with some half baked ideas, they try those ideas only to find out they didn't work and then they're frustrated. So
Mhm.
what we did is we put together what's called the MAPS blueprint. MAP stands for models, assessment, priorities, and systems. And basically, for a 2 hour workshop, we'll meet with the client. It becomes real. We take them through our questionnaires and we document it all. And it's really just more of an intake. And then we go away for about a week and we look at different things that we can do. And then we output them with a deliverable, and it contains a 30-day success sprint. So pretty much just say, hey, do these things in the first week. And then they get less, I guess, less complicated and less complicated and less complicated. Like to the last week's usually like optional.
Hmm.
We have a thing called buyers over browsers and how we can really hone in on who you need to target.
Hmm.
We have a budget. Like no one ever knows what their budget is, so we help people figure out what they should be spending to achieve the goals that they told us were important. And we're not here to defend those goals. We just say, hey, you told us you wanted to make $1 million next year. You can't be spending $500 a month.
Hmm.
I want to spend, that's fine. We just give you we just tell you what you would need to realistically spend to get there. Yeah. And then we do a marketing launch pad. So we would recommend the channels that would probably get you there the quickest and how to fine tune those channels. So we do that for $13.95.
Hmm.
Pretty pretty small investment.
Yeah.
But what I'm willing to do is to meet with anyone that's listening here, have a chat, see if we're a good fit. Happy to at least listen to some ideas, and if we're a good fit, we can move with the program. If not, at very least, we could point them in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. That maps blueprint. I mean, the investment on that. I mean, you could walk away with some great guidance, great direction, and both of you have stake, in the outcomes of that, and
Yeah.
then you can decide, how that you want to implement that. So we'll make sure that we have the link to the call with Rich in the
Yeah.
show notes. So that way, if you
Yep.
want to have a quick 15-minute conversation with him about the maps blueprint and maybe some challenges that you're having in your business, we'll make sure that you've got the link in the show notes and you can go schedule with him. So, Rich, I really appreciate your time here today. Service delivery, I think, is something that so many businesses have such an amazing opportunity, and just changing a few little things can have
Yep.
a big improvement in customer retention, and of course ultimately profits, and the success of those businesses. So appreciate your
Yeah.
time here today.
Service is a superpower.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to see you, and it's been a great experience working with you, and doing doing the hard stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Well, everybody,
Yep.
thanks for tuning in today to today's episode. Again, make sure that you check out the MAPS blueprint details. We'll have all of that into our show notes. And if you're looking to supercharge your email marketing, check out my book, Hit the Inbox, at hittheinboxbook.com. It's packed with 76 pages of strategies to get your emails landing in inboxes and driving sales. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you. And until next time, keep crushing it in the trenches.